This topic today, Robin suggested a while ago, how to truly enrich your language database. Thanks to Robin, yeah, we're going to dive a little bit deeper about this. And many of you are computer programmer or software engineers, and you have more knowledge than me in this area. But I just wanted to use a layman term. Our language is a database, or languages are a database. Chinese, English, even your dialects, or several other foreign languages. So they're a database. It is constantly updating, constantly updating. And different languages store at different database. They entail words, phonics, phrases, sentences, paragraphs, articles, and etc. They have their space in our brain, in the database. And we use database on daily basis. With word retrieval, data retrieval, we use them all the time. They're just part of our system. That's why when we have Alzheimer's, the first symptom you will notice is that you are not able to retrieve the words, and you may be having difficulties understanding certain words because that part of the brain is damaged. And the second language database has to be regularly updated and maintained, like our English database and our Japanese, French, whatever. They had to be regularly maintained and updated as well. But it won't automatically update it as time progresses. Many people will think, oh, okay, I've been living in the States for 20 years. I've been living in the States for 15 years, 30 years. How come I still not be able to use this language freely? How come I still have this Chinglish term or words? I still don't feel comfortable using those words. That's because they do not automatically update it or improve over the years. You just have to be strategically update them yourself. Language info becomes part of the database. How are they readily available and readily for deploy? Is through this idea, multi-modalities, meaning multi-sensory. What does that mean? The information has to enter your brain through multiple channels, meaning your eyes, your ears, your mouth, and your hand. Sometimes even your nose, your olfactory, smelling. That's auditory, visual. Your mouth is actually auditory plus kinetic. Hand is tactile and olfactory. Those modalities has to be involved. At least three of them, auditory, visual, and tactile. They have to be involved. If you enter information using those modalities, chances are they will be retained much longer and you'll be able to use them. So it must be multimodality. And also, it must be short enough. I use this computer term, cache. It has to be within the cache capacity. It has to be short enough. If you are trying to retain a long information, it won't be retained. It won't be retained. And also, another principle is it must repeat frequent enough. Frequent enough. So those things are still very abstract, right? Let me give you some mythbusters. Some people say, well, I watch movies a lot. I read books a lot. Of course, English movies and English books and all. I listen to audiobooks all the time. I also speak a lot because of my work. I have to speak English all the time. And I even read newspapers. How come my database is still not up to date? How come I'm still not able to use those things? Why? You are not utilizing multisensory. And also, they are not short enough. They're not being repeated frequent enough. For example, some people, me included, on our way to work, we crank up the car and we listen to the news. The news are just a flow of auditory information, carry meanings. They enter through our ears, but how much of those information get retained? Probably very little, because there are too many of them, too much information. They occupied our cache, our brain, short-term memory, and we have to empty them out because they're not short enough and they're not being repeated, let alone we're able to use them. We maybe remember some aspect of it, but they're not part of ours. And same thing goes to movies. We watch movies, we remember the plot. We remember several scenes. We remember several characters, of course, even the music. But do we remember those critical dialogues? Remember those words? I doubt so. Unless you really watch that movie for like many, many times. Back in the day, during Cultural Revolution, there's only seven drama in China called Yang Banxi. That's the only 7 dramas that you get to watch. It's either 地道战, it's either, 红色娘子军, either 红灯记. What happened was everybody remembered those lines. Everybody was able to imitate those lines and plots. If I say the first line and you'll be able to give me the second line, that's because they repeat over and over and over and over in all occasions, almost on a daily basis. That is the thing. We are doing a lot. We're gaining information from all those activities. Those are information gain. But information retention is another thing. You have to purposely dissect them and put them into small chunks and repeat over and frequently enough until they'll be able to register in your database. Otherwise, they are just going to be coming and go, coming and go. You become a filter at most. You're not going to retain this information. You can retain some, but it's not going to be efficient. Have you ever heard about ringworm effect? Ringworm effect and a nursery rhymes. Ringworm is what we call the 洗脑神曲, okay? And also those advertising jingles. We are farmers, bum, 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 bum. Also, liberty, 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 liberty. Also, everybody remembers Geico, right? 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. How many times we get to see that little commercial? Those things are carefully engineered. Warren Buffett spends millions and millions of dollars every single year just trying to make you remember that piece of information for over 2 decades, probably more. And they're trying to use short, repeatable information to get into your brain. And ringworm effect is the song. We listen to several songs, but you find that some of the pop songs, you cannot get them out of your head. For example, this song, I think you probably heard of it. Let's play it.
$1 zillion. The question is, who let the dogs out? 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 Who let the dogs out?
Okay, I'm not going to play this whole song for 3 minutes and 37 seconds, but do you know how many times this little phrase repeated? Who let the dogs out? Probably over 100 times. Now, if you close your eyes, can you remember the lyrics that who let the dogs out, right? This is how they're programmed to get into your brain. They're programmed to get into your brain. And by repetition, 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 with beats, with all kinds of music, they get into your brain. You thus retain the information. They become part of your database. They keep registering your brain. And by the way, you didn't do it on purpose. You didn't want to remember it. They just come naturally because it fits the principle. It's novelty. It's very new that you don't know what's going on. The second, it's auditory bombardment. It's giving you a lot of pictures and to grab your eyeball. And also, it's short enough, repeat frequent enough. So you'll remember this song very, very easily. At least several part of it. Everybody knows it. And it will create a collective consciousness of one generation. Just like people in the 2010s, we all remember several songs. And people from the 80s, we all remember, Michael Jackson's song. And people in the 90s will remember several other songs, Puffy Daddy or whatever. Okay, this is fairly recent, 2012, Gangnam Style. It's the same thing. I'll tell you the science behind it. This is the Korean song. Over 4 billion times playback. So the matter of fact is, all this music are manufactured using the same principle to get in your brain. Almost 95% of them, those top on the Billboard, top on the best music chart, they all using the same algorithm, same principle. There's a book called The Sound Machine, Inside the Hit Factory by John Seabrook. He was the one that revealed the secret behind the trillion-dollar modern pop music industry. They all using the same algorithm, same principle to generate hundreds of thousands of songs every year. And think about nursery rhymes. When we were little, and also our children, how did we remember all those nursery rhymes? This is another example.
There was a farmer had a dog.
second time.
Bingo was his name. I-N-D-O, 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 and Bingo was his name.
So one song like that, your children probably have already been repeating this one term for over 30 times. That's why they remember the song. That's why they remember several phrases over and over and over, because they just created a loop inside their head. They cannot help from repeating it over and over and over. This is how they pick up the language. And this is actually how we pick up our native language of Mandarin Chinese when we're little. And we can utilize this principle in reaching our language database. We are basically data processing machines, and we're processing gigabytes of data daily. For useful data, we need to decode, interpret, and store and use it. But sometimes we just subconsciously and unconsciously just taking some information all in without properly processing, sorting them, and store them, let alone retrieval. So when we were little, we learned language pretty similar to the nursery rhyme way. We were using fully immersion, multimodality. We listened to a lot of nursery rhymes, and our teacher gave us dictations. We use spaced testing, spaced memorization, testing. Okay, you need to remember those words. First, every morning, read aloud with class. There's another thing called echo effect, chorus. When you are in the chorus, that will triple your memorization. There's a science behind it. Okay, and also frequent spaced testing, repetition. And also when you are in that language environment, you listen to broadcasting, you watch TV, you see signs all over the place, and you are pretty much fully immersed yourself in that language on a daily basis for 20 years, 30 years until you come to America. And that's how our children learn their English when they're in America. So unless we put ourselves in that similar simulated environment, we're not able to learn this particular language, really like a native language. We have to simulate this process, reconstruct this process. And also, we can catch the rhythm of the language. It is everywhere. It is everywhere. If you catch the rhythm of the language and using the principle of multimodality, short and repetition, you'll be able to retain them. You'll be able to enrich them very, very easily. So instead of reading a lot of articles, maybe you can just concentrate on one article for, let's say, 1 month, one article. But you are just going to read this article over and over and over and over and over and over until this article becomes part of it. And instead of watching a lot of movies, maybe 1 month, you just focus on watching one movie several times until you digest it, until you make it the lyrics like the back of your hand. Also the book. Instead of reading a lot of books, maybe you can choose this one particular book, make it dog-eared, make it so crumbled, make the cover fall off. You not only read the text, you also read the Kindle version, you also listen to the audiobook version, and you also are able to make a summary, you also share with other people, you also make a note, do all kinds of things from multi-modality way. Then you'll be able to truly absorb that information. So the principle here, least resistance. When we are listening to Who Let the Dog Out, do we have to use willpower? Do we have to use any of our strength or anything? No. It has to be pleasure-driven. It has to be relevant. And also, it has to be a part of your habit. Find something that you find a truly pleasurable thing to read, truly pleasurable movie to watch, or truly pleasurable article to read. And find something that is totally relevant to your field of work, to your life, and also make it a habit, because a habit basically is an addiction. Once you form a habit, you cannot help yourself from not doing it. If you find yourself still trying too hard, then that's not least resistance. Now, think about why we wanted to use a WeChat and 朋友圈. Do you know why? Because that's novelty. Every time you do it, every time you press it, there's some new articles coming out. And those articles are short. Those articles are very interesting. Those articles are very relevant to what you focus on. If you look at the fonts, if you look at the arrangement of the articles, They are carefully engineered. They're not too hard to read. They are bite-sized. And another principle is always use multimodalities. Bombard your ear, multisensory, auditory bombardment, visual with emotion, and hand with emotion. That's why I said transcription, dictation are very useful tool. Even when we are like in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, we still wanted to do this exercise. Because only through transcription, you'll be able to find, okay, I do not know this word. I do not know this sentence. I do not know this phrase. And through cross-checking, you'll be able to understand, okay, well, that is the blind spot. That is the blank. That is the area that I do not know. And then through overly repeating that piece of article, that piece of soundbite, they are retained in your cache and they are returned and transferred to your database. You don't have to work very hard and they just automatically inside your head. You can just take it out. And also retention through application. You have to use, share, and teach. Use, share, and teach. If you do not use them, they will not be part of your database. If you do not share with others, it's not going to be part of yours. If you don't even teach it, you cannot remember it. So use, share, teach. That's why making a book report, making a book summary, share with other people is so important. And they not only help others, they will help you. So multimodality, retention through application, and also make it fun, make it least resistant.